No one lays down the law like Car and Key. This is the Law Report on SAFM.
And a very good evening to you from tonight's Law Report program. Well, as you know, once a month here on the Law Report, we run a legal clinic trying to answer a range of questions on a number of different topics. And tonight, it's again time to open the lines for you to ask that legal question that doesn't quite fit into the other topics we discuss here on the Law Report. And added to this tonight, we're going to be taking a look at the problems faced by small businesses when it comes to the legal red tape they encounter. So I'm joined once again this evening by attorney Nicolene Skuman-Low. She's a director of Skuman Law Inc., Attorneys, Conveyancers and Notaries Public. Nicolene, good evening. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And our special guest this evening is Michael Gelderblom. He's a board member of the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for you and your listeners.
Now, if you have any questions for us, you can call us now on 0892 10 20 10. We just have a few emails to deal with first, but you can call in the meantime. Just leave your name and number with my producer, and we'll call you back as soon as we're done with those. The number again, 0892 10 20 10, and you can SMS us on 40938. Right, Nicolene, we just have 3 emails to get through this evening, so we'll be quite quick with those. The first one says, I have a long pending estate file of my late mother who passed away in August 2012. It's been 5 years now and the estate is yet to be finalized. I was 23 at the time of my mom's passing and my brother was 12. And through the insistence of the family, we appointed a certain person as the executor. I had no clue what we were doing and what the implications would be. 5 years down the line, I haven't received any detailed reports of the estate. For example, monies claimed, monies used, and items outstanding, even after numerous written requests. The person appointed as the executor is now not responding to any of my communications. I've also gone and submitted a complaint at the Cape Law Society and the Master of the Court in Mthatha, but nothing has been done since then. I would like your advice on the recourse that I have and how we can try to speed up this process. My brother is going to university next year and I need to plan for his studies. Yes, shouldn't be taking that long, surely, Nicolene?
Yeah, no, definitely. If you look at the average time that it takes to administer a deceased estate, it's anything between 18 months and 36, all going well. Obviously, when a minor is involved, it does take a little longer, and in this case it was. But with that being said, not receiving any reports or progress or any indications as to what has or has not been done or what is outstanding is completely unacceptable. Clearly, the internal remedies, as we would call it, in other words, a complaints procedure through the Master's Office and the Cape Law Society has been followed. Exhausted by the looks of it because of the fact that there's not been a response. So the only recourse left to the listener is really to approach an attorney and to probably have the executor removed from his or her office and to appoint someone in their stead. Perhaps the listener himself, seeing as he's a family member. If you look at the requirements to serve as an executor, then you need to put up some security. But if you are the surviving spouse or surviving child of age, then you can take that appointment and you need not supply the security. So strategically and from a cost perspective, removing this person and replacing with the listener could be a very good idea. But of course it comes with practical challenges, and I just want to make the listener aware of that. Once this other person is removed, you may be taken over or may be taking over a lot of records that have not been properly kept or followed up or lost or so on. So you may find yourself having to remove this person, and if it hasn't been dealt with properly, even putting a claim in against this person by way of again, a court action for damages. So this may have a long history, and it may or a long road ahead besides the long history, and it may not be in time for the planning of the studies.
Now, just 2 questions. The fact that they can't find this person who was appointed as the executor, can you remove them without actually being able to find them?
Yeah.
You can just do it without their knowledge, effectively.
Essentially, it's a court application, and you're requesting the Master of the High Court to exercise their discretion and to remove this person from the office.
Second question, is this something that can be done with the assistance of, for example, legal aid or something like that? Can. So they wouldn't, if he doesn't have any ready cash, he could go to legal aid and they would be able to assist with this.
Provided he meets the threshold for legal aid. If he's over the threshold of legal aid, then you could still approach the Law Society and ask for a pro bono appointment.
Right, so there are quite a few options here for the listeners. I hope that helps you, and hopefully you'll get on the road to getting this sorted out. It has been quite a long time. Right, the next one says, if the deceased wrote in her will that she's leaving part of her fixed asset to her nephew, and only to find out that it's not a boy but a girl, no ID number, can the will be declared null and void due to the error?
Well, you know, in my attorney hat, if I put that on, it says immediately, is this an error? You know, the fact of the matter is there's no requirement that if you're making a will that you have to identify the person by their full name and ID number. It's a good measure that we as attorneys recommend. Put as much information of the person you want to inherit from you into the will so that there can't be any confusion as to who you meant. So if you have included the full name of this person, the person is identifiable. The fact that it's he or she thought that this person was a boy or a girl and now it turns out to be different may not be an error in that sense. And in any event, that's not something that could invalidate a will. It's only when the person isn't identifiable or there's a contesting claim saying that these are the same names that I bear and it was actually me that...
Because he does specify that there's no ID number included in the will.
Well, as long as there's a full name and perhaps a descriptor such as my nephew or my niece so-and-so, then that's enough of an identifier. It's really better to include the ID number, but there's no regulation saying you have to, and if you don't, that it actually invalidates the will itself. If someone contests the will and they say, but I bear the same names and may as well also have been me, then you've got a problem. But then again, it's something that you have to prove, and you have to prove how you would have found yourself into the will, etc. So it's not as simple as to say if there's no ID number, then it invalidates that bequest by virtue of not including it in the first place.
Right, we'll be back with our final email in a moment. We already have one call on the line, and then we'll be getting down to small business.
No one lays down the law like car and key. This is the Law Report on SAFM.
Right, our last email, Nicolene, it says, my wife made a loan of 1,000 Rand. Now, this story is actually quite scary because this happens to a lot of people without us knowing that this is going to happen. This listener says, my wife made a loan of 1,000 Rand. She's paying 164 Rand over 18 months. I noticed this in September, but she started paying from last October. She will finish paying in March next year. To me, this is ridiculous that 1,000 Rand can generate 1,952 Rand, obviously in interest. How is interest worked out in this deal? Is that compliant in the National Credit Regulator regulations, regardless of the given contract? Because people are being ripped off by the institutions which are restricted to be assistance in the community they serve.
Well, the short answer to that question is no, it's not lawful. It's not in line with the regulations published in terms of the National Credit Act or by the National Credit Regulator. The National Credit Act works in conjunction with the Consumer Protection Act and deals with the credit provisions on consumer level. So any individuals or small business for that matter that were to contract for purposes of lending money needs to ensure that these agreements comply. The National Credit Act is also applicable to larger business, and it's really very, very large loans that are exempt from it. So a good rule of thumb is to say you probably need to comply rather than you don't. So with that being said, if you are engaging in these agreements, then the creditor has a few obligations to meet. Firstly, they need to ensure that you can afford the loan that you're taking out and that you have the means of repaying it. So they need to do an assessment, and the Act actually prescribes the type of things that they need to look at and assess and ensure that you can afford. So that's the first portion of it, and the fact is that this, in these situations, statistically rarely happens. So you have people taking out these loans that actually have no means of repaying them. That's the first point. And these guys often know that, and that's an ethical question as much as it is a legal one. Secondly, you've got a regulation called the Induplum Rule. It's something that is enshrined in the National Credit Act itself as well. And in simple terms, it provides for a capital amount which may attract interest, legal fees, admin fees, all these little add-ons up to the point of the capital amount. Then it stops running. So if she were to default at this point, they shouldn't have any recourse in terms of claiming the excess of these payments. So anything over and above 2,000 Rand in grand total falls within the induplum rule, and then the interest and the charges stop running.
So what happens now, because she's paying until March next year, and the total, he's worked it out, is 1,952 Rand. So that 952 Rand is not legal, effectively.
Well, the minute it reaches 2,000 Rand, anything over the 2,000 is unlawful.
Okay, so if she's paid off her 1,000 Rand, and she's paid off an extra 1,000 Rand in interest, anything over that
is unlawful in
but
terms
then
of
the problem
national
is, if you
credit.
don't pay it, then some of these companies are going to try and blacklist you.
So what
do you do then?
I would rather recommend that you contact the National Credit Regulator. They've got an ombud structure, and that you actually report this institution. And besides the legal aspects, I think it's in the interest of your community to do so.
Okay.
Particularly if you're saying this is something that regularly happens, and that this is something that is core to that business. It means that you're not the only person who's going through this, and you may be on the lucky end of the stick, so to speak, because it's only 1,000 Rand plus another. Imagine if it's much more than that, and what the burdens could be. In 18 months to attract that kind of interest is quite hefty. So you also need to look at the maximum interest rate. Every year, plus minus, the regulator publishes the maximum interest rate, and at the moment it's just under 24% per annum, not per month, per annum, per year, in other words.
Okay.
So and that's often something that people don't really look at the fine print for. So they think, oh, they're charging me 5% per month, and these guys are charging me 24 per annum. Then it sounds less, but it's substantially more if you multiply the 5% over 12, which you're actually paying.
Right, we've got one caller on the line who wants to talk about community of property versus antenuptial contracts. So we just do that, and then we'll get on to our business portion of the evening. Christopher in Vanderbijl Park, good evening.
Very good evening to you.
How can we help you?
Yes. I would like to find about marriage law. When a couple gets married by a church minister, I would like to know what is the primary default here. Is it in community or out of community? When the moment they sign at the church minister's desk, what is it? Is it in community or out of community? The moment you put your signature on those pieces of paper.
Well, in terms of a civil marriage, as well as in this case a church marriage, the minute you put pen to paper there and you don't have an antenuptial contract executed prior to signing that document at the church, you are now married in community of property. And the only way to change that is actually to make an application to court requesting permission to change that. And it costs a lot of money to do it that way. So overall, if you know of anyone who's wanting to get married and they would prefer being married out of community of property, please make sure that they do what they need to do before they put pen to paper at church.
Yeah, Christopher, they would need to see an attorney, and there are special documents that you have to fill in and sign, and it's all got, I'm thinking about my one. It's got a big seal on the front with like a ribbon thing attached. It's quite an official looking document, but the attorney does that, and you have to do that before you actually go to the church or the court or wherever you're going off to get married. You've got to do that prior to the marriage.
No, well, what I'm saying is this couple didn't go anywhere else. They went straight to the church and got married. So what is it, in community or out community?
In community of property, unless they went to an attorney beforehand and actually had a special antenuptial contract drawn up by an attorney, then they're married antenuptial. They're married in community of property.
Also, the first default is in community. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
unfortunately.
All right. Okay. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Christopher.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
We've got some SMSs coming in, but we'll get back to those in a moment. And in just one moment, we're going to be talking about our business side of this program this evening, but we'll be back in just a short while.
No one lays down the law like Car and Key. This is the Law Report on SAFM.
Right, so I promised you some exciting news about small businesses and how things can be better for them. And joining me, as I said earlier, in the studio this evening is Michael Gelderblom, and he is a board member of the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum. And the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum have partnered with Schoeman Law to change the face of SMME growth in, at this stage, the Western Cape.
Yeah, well, we're very excited about this partnership, and all the opportunities that we believe it will create for small businesses. Yes, it is starting in the Western Cape, but it's by no means limited to that. And I think it's exciting because it's for the first time, I believe, something is being focused on a group of individuals and small businesses, or a segment of our economy where people often overlook, and you don't always see the potential or the aspects that are perhaps required to take that small business to the next level. And I think it's really exciting for us to be able to put something together that would address two of the main concerns, in my view. Michael may agree or disagree with me, but I think two aspects for small businesses are always on the forefront, and the one is access to funding, and the second is access to market. And if we look at the reasons for why those become obstacles to the small business, it all translates back to a few key steps that you take right at the beginning. And if we talk about these key steps, we cannot overlook the importance of the legal provisions and to get your structures in order in your contract, and how you will be managing your cash flow. What are the agreements that will impact that, or that will allow for that or prevent that? And because those are not being addressed, small businesses often find themselves in a position where they really need that funding now. And then they are not able to access it because they don't have these basics in place. And often time is of such an essence, and maybe budgetary constraints make it absolutely impossible. It's a chicken and egg situation. Same to access to markets. If you look at approaching that large customer, your large customer wants to know that you can deliver. And one of the key aspects they look at is if you have structure and if you have decision-making metrics in place and documentation and all of that. And if you don't, then sometimes the conversation doesn't even go further to a pitch or to try and sell your services or goods.
Michael, you probably, these small businesses that are, starting up now, this must be very daunting and overwhelming for them, especially the legal side of things.
I think it is. Let me just go back to WECPOF and give you some background. It's exactly why a organization like WECPOF started. Because if you are a small business, you often find that you have this great idea and everybody thinks they're going to become millionaires overnight. And it doesn't happen like that, because there's a few building blocks that should be in place. Now, WECPOF's brief was to give access to opportunities, training and finance to small members. Now, we all know as small business how difficult it is to get finance, access to finance. And I think the trick is to be part of an organization like this where you can network and where those gaps can be filled, as Nicolene has said. Now, what we like about the idea of disruptive technologies is that it gives small business opportunity to thrive. You often find that your small business owner is the marketing agent, he is the accountant, and he does the work. And exactly in that lies the big problem, because you don't have enough focus on what you should be doing. And then you get into a situation like if you have a small construction company, you get a tender, and now you sit with the tender, you fill the tender in, and you agree, and they say it's a JBCC contract. And everything goes okay because you have the contract now, only to understand this is a massive legal document. And that's when you get into trouble.
So, and this is now going to hopefully help them. Basically, you've got a self-help desk. People can actually log on and access the information online.
So, on the 1st of December, we're launching this to the general public. And essentially, it's a online legal solution. Yes, I know disruptive technology is the buzzword these days. So this has been planned for a very long time on the Schoeman Law side. We've always been focused on serving the need of the entrepreneur, and we've seen hands-on how some people are just slipping through the cracks because the system just doesn't accommodate them. So if you start out, your budget is so tight that you actually don't have the money to say, okay, let me do this properly, let me go and see a legal person. They would rather, in most instances, say, okay, pick between legal and the financial or the tax side. Okay, we go where it's most needed first. We'll park that for later, and later becomes never. And then you end up in a situation where it's beyond repair. So instead of those guys propelling in 5 years from 0 to 5 employees or 5 to 10, you see them just disappearing off of the radar in totality. So there's a gap that is maybe the most illustrative of a disconnect between some professions, including the legal profession, and the customer or the client, where they don't see us as let's partner from the beginning, where it's a grudge purchase, where it's a heavy price tag and all these things. It's inaccessible. So we've spent a lot of time saying, how can we change this? So we decided on the 1st of December 2017, we're launching in partnership with WECBOF. We are launching the SME self-service desk, and it's an online platform where users can register, log in, and then they've got access to a full suite of different legal documents, including company resolutions, and different types of agreements like shareholder agreements, distribution agreements, independent contractor, employment contracts, etc. And we'll elaborate on that as the need goes. So we're very flexible.
So basically, there will be a charge involved, but it's not going to be what you would pay if you went to an attorney just to an attorney. You're basically doing a lot of this yourself.
Yes, you're doing this yourself, but it's in a responsible manner. So we're running some podcasts with that to walk you through each of the documents, to explain to you what it is and what it's meant for, etc. We've got videos, we've got all sorts of online resources, and of course, let's get back to the disruption. We've decided there are similar products in the market. We're well aware of it, but it's the only product that is parked centrally within a law firm. So it's changing the way in which ultimately not only small businesses, individuals, and attorneys will interact with one another. The technology we have has the capability of taking any document, even for a larger business, that is repetitive in nature. So T's and C's, employment contracts, subcontractor agreements, etc., and to automate that, to track all your documents that you've generated, to go back historically. So it's a management side, as well as a standardization, so that if your support staff end up using the system and capturing the data for you, it looks the same every single time. It helps you to do it correctly. And in that way, we've improved the system where you could go to a news agency and buy your template off the shelf and fill it in by hand. And often we would see people filling the wrong thing into the wrong block, and then it's completely useless. So we've taken that and we've built a system that you'll fill the right thing in at the right place. If you don't know what to fill in, then there's a little help button. And if you still get stuck or you feel uncomfortable, then there's a person you can phone. You're not going to go to a call center. You're not going to go to some person that will say to you, oh, okay, we only give an online product. Here's a list of 20 names. You can call one of these attorneys, and then they can help you in the traditional way.
Yeah, and then you get back to where you started in the first place.
So then it's a full circle. So we're really saying, let's change the way in which we do things. Let's change the way in which the legal profession serves its clients.
And Michael, you and Nicoline both have been referring to this thing called WECBOF. So people thinking, what on earth is that? It's actually the acronym for the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum.
Yes.
So when you say WECBOF, that's what it is.
That's what it means.
Okay, this must actually be music to your ears. I mean, this for basically your clients, the small businesses. Yeah,
what you find is exactly the whole scenario Nicoline has described now. When you go into business, you have this honeymoon period and everything's okay and you're going to make lots of money, but there are certain steps you have to follow. Today there's such a lot of data, such a lot of things you have to consider. You cannot do that if you do not have proper legal backing, and it gets worse when I think you become more competitive, and then before you know it, you make enemies instead of making friends, and that's where you need this. A simple example is just before we started, you mentioned a tender, and a lot of small businesses go, and you've now said that there's a briefing session. Now, some briefing sessions start on time, and some people say 15 minutes later. Now you get there, and you've now bought a plane ticket to go to Johannesburg and attended, and you are used to the fact that it's 15 minutes later, or that's permissible. You get there and it's not. So what do you do now? So now you appeal the process, and you need legal advice to do that. So all these things, as you called it, has a full circle, and that's why you need the legal profession to do it properly.
Now, I keep mentioning it's the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum. This is a national program. There could be people sitting up in Mpumalanga or in KZN or wherever thinking, but what about me?
Okay. We are part of a group, also Western Cape based, and it's called Business Western Cape. But Business Western Cape is an amalgamation of your major business chambers. SACI, NAFCOC, AHI, and those are national bodies. So this would apply to a national audience.
And basically what they're accessing on the website, they can access that from anywhere in the country. They don't have to be in the Western Cape to do that.
Yes.
You just happen to be starting it down here.
Yes, and purely because our head office is based in Cape Town. So we've reached out to the community in Cape Town first, but by no means is it meant to be Cape Town in isolation. It's just the starting point.
And where do they find this? Where do they go? It starts on the 1st of December, but they can go and have a look at the moment because it says coming soon, I think, on there.
Yes.
So where do they go?
So go to the website www.skumanlaw.co.za, and on there you'll find a button saying SME self-service. If you click on there, they'll at the moment there's a coming soon and a pre-order form that you may complete with some advantages to that. Or you can just watch the social media space. It's buzzing about all the things that we'll be doing and launching, and we've even started to share some of the podcasts, and that's completely free. Some of the documents, there will be one or two that are freely available. So if you're skeptical and you just want to give it a test run, you're more than welcome to do so. So it's really, we believe it's something that will change the realities for many small businesses in a more positive way.
If you've got any questions about your business or any other questions that you'd like to ask Nicoline this evening, give us a call, 0892 10 2010, 0892 10 2010, or SMS us on 40938. Just want to get to this SMS that came in, Nicoline. It says a 31-year-old legally adopted son died intestate. Biological mother claimed the estate. The High Court master needs proof of adoption by my aunt. Only the adopter or adoptee have access. Who can help to get the proof of adoption documents for official use sent directly to the master? Now, surely if the biological mother has no claim after the child was legally adopted, surely.
No, okay, so your biological parent has a claim insofar as you are not legally adopted. So if it's only a fostering situation, then the biological parent would always be the intestate heir in that context. But if there was a lawful adoption, then it would have gone through many channels, including Home Affairs and Social Development. So there is a public record of this. So the starting point would be to try and get the records from the relevant public offices. And if that fails, if it's been many years ago...
It would be Department of Home Affairs, wouldn't it?
Home Affairs and to a degree Social Development. Presumably this happened many years ago, so hopefully the record...
31-year-old legally adopted, so it's a long time ago.
So hopefully the record still exists. They should have preserved it.
But Home Affairs will definitely have a copy of that, I'm sure.
So the internal process would be your first starting point. You need to exhaust all internal processes with government departments before you look at external resolutions. So if that fails, don't wait for too long. If that fails, then you need to go to an attorney that will bring an application in terms of PIA, the Promotion of Access to Information Act. If that fails, there's a process. Then you can actually approach court and compel them to give you access to the records. And once you have the records, then you can go to the master and you can overturn the whole thing. But remember, the longer you wait, and if the inheritance has already been paid out,
it's going to disappear.
Every day that you wait, and if we're talking about cash or something you could be making into cash, then time is of the essence. And if you are worried that something's going to happen to the inheritance, then perhaps an interdict application to stop that person from dealing with the assets right now is the most pressing point.
Okay, so if there's a potential of the inheritance wandering off somewhere and disappearing, apply for an interdict to stop that from happening,
Yes.
and you can do that.
Point one.
Okay, that's the point one. Secondly, you can apply, I would imagine, First Step, Home Affairs,
Yes.
or Social Development,
Or both of them.
to ask for access to the records of adoption, which will be there. If it's a legal adoption, Home Affairs will have the paperwork.
They should have the
Okay.
paperwork. And if they are not if they're not forthcoming in a reasonable time, then approach an attorney to take you through the request for information.
And also
process.
sometimes where the child was adopted from, because these days that could have been an open adoption, or there could have been, or if you know where the adoption happened, you can go to that particular welfare office and ask them where
then
you were
that
able
would
to
also
find.
be a record.
Yes.
But the Home Affairs one is the best of
Option.
all the records.
Yeah,
Yes.
so go and try that. There are options to do that, but don't wait, because the inheritance could suddenly just disappear. Gone. So get an interdict if you're worried about that, first of all. We've got a call on the line from Gauteng. George, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, how can we help you, George?
Okay, if you can help, let's say you're working in a certain company, but with their hiring system, they use a certain system of nepotism. So they advertise, jobs. When they advertise, they are called internal jobs. But after that, they know exactly who they want. So the person they want does not have a qualification. So if you are internally in the company, they want to hire you. They will hire somebody without those qualifications. But outwards, they do have a requirement to say, okay, right, you must have 1, 2, 3 for you to be employed. But because of some certain people, they are hired without those qualifications. When they come into the company, now they are sent into those, 2 weeks, 3 weeks courses, 4 weeks courses, so that to make them, as if, they wanted to bring up to the level. But now the people in the company, they are not given, they are not even responded to, and this goes on and on and on. A lot of people, they don't respond, they don't even answer that one. They can see what is happening, but because everybody is afraid to say, okay, right, when they come forward, they will be victimized, and this is carrying on and on. It's because those people, they come from a certain location, or they are of a certain racial groups. So some of the people are sidelined. So how do you go about it? Is there any law where you can go to, or the people who can help you to say, okay, right, if you got something in black and white, if it is proven to say, okay, this person was hired without this qualification, but when he was in the company, he was forced to do this and that one there, but in the company there was a certain person with those qualifications was not hired.
Okay,
So
George, let me just ask Nicolene. Nicolene, any comments on that?
Well, I think Michael Baker
He probably would be better,
maybe a better person to give a more in-depth answer. I'm just going to deal with it on the surface, as it may be. Proving something like that from a legal perspective could be very challenging, because even though you're seeing a pattern, right, you need to be able to prove this to the satisfaction of a court of law, for example. So having paper records of the advertisements and the people ultimately getting these appointments versus the applicants, that's very good. If you can collect all that information and you want to complain, then you can most certainly do so. But just bear in mind that it's a very heavy onus. It's like proving fraud, really. So the papers help you, but there's always a deeper level in order to get to the bottom of it. So if you open the proverbial can of worms, you may find yourself stuck for many, many moons trying to prove it. I'm not discouraging the listener to do this, but just bear in mind that if you are going to go this route, it's not going to be easy. The papers is just one side of it. You'll have to line up people that would be willing to attest to similar situations being witnessed. You'll have to dig deeper into the company policy and how they recruit and what are their internal policies, their corporate governance structures, etc., used for the final decision making in recruitment. So the documents you may have access to is only one portion of it.
George, what we can do is we've got your phone number, and what I can do is put you on the list for when Michael Bagram comes back on the first Monday of next month, if you'd like. And the first Monday of November. Gosh, I scare myself when I think about being November. If you'd like, we can ask him your question then. Would you like that?
Yeah, that's okay.
And we'll give you a call on that day, and maybe he can give you some more information. I mean, Nicoline's explained the thing, but maybe Michael would have some other information he might be able to help you with.
Maybe an omelette structure.
Yeah, there's a lot of information and a lot of proof and online which can prove that, okay, this person was hired without qualification, but now when he was inside, he was sent, but with the people with the qualification inside.
Okay, George, we've got a record of your number. We'll give you a call on that day and let you know. What I'm actually going to do is put you back to my producer. Can you just give him an email address just so that I can email you to remind you that we're going to call you that day?
Okay, thank you.
All right, so hold the line. I'm going to put you back to my producer now.
Okay.
Thank you, George. If you have any questions, it's 0892 10 20 10, and the SMS line is 40938. Michael, I just wanted to go back to you about small businesses. Are you seeing an increase in small businesses actually taking that risk? Because it is a risk.
It's always a risk. We were just speaking about this earlier. There's such a lot of small businesses that are failing because these steps are not in place. The right decisions are not made. And I think that much more can be done to encourage small businesses and to assist. If you look at the red tape, economic development has a red tape reduction unit, but still you find that it takes long for certain things to happen. A simple thing like connecting electricity for a business costs a lot of money to do, and that process could be done quicker. And I don't think everybody is on board in assisting small businesses. Wegbof has decided that it's better to play a collaborative role with different business organizations and different businesses in building a stronger brand, but also assisting small businesses in a better, in a more focused way.
It is quite a daunting prospect when you're actually going out there starting your new business, and you've got all the, I think your mind is focused on the business itself, what your product is, what your business is going to be, and there's all this other extraneous stuff that you not quite sure, and it's quite daunting. It must be.
I think it's not just that, but I think we are taught to sell first, make some money first, and then you adapt as you go along. And we were actually having this conversation a bit earlier as well, that maybe that's in my own basket of lessons, that's something I think if I had to redo how I started my business, what I would do differently. That you actually, your systems and your processes and your documents and your structure, all of that actually has to come before the extra sell comes. Otherwise, you find yourself that you've committed to delivering product or service, doesn't really matter, but your infrastructure doesn't allow the delivery.
You could have a good product, but everything could collapse behind you, basically.
Exactly. So I think something like what we are doing here and the collaboration that Wegbof is all about, and to say we need to connect and collaborate and see how we can build each other and how we can build businesses by joining hands and saying, let's not overlook that segment that everyone, I mean, if we look at and corporate funding and all these positions, it focuses on very small, the startup almost, I want to dare to say, and the very large. But somewhere in the middle, no one is looking. No one is looking at that segment, and that's a real problem.
Well, I spoke to a friend of mine that his friend was part of a big parastatal and decided to leave the organization and start his own business. And he then went back to the parastatal and pitched for work, filling in tenders. And he came back and he said he never realized how difficult it is out there, let alone to come from a organization and trying to get in, because it doesn't work like that. So it's not easy. It's not that difficult either. I think you should build it slowly. I think you must forget about the luxuries. I think you must the money, the profit that you make, you must put back in the building, invest it in your people, and that's how you grow the business. as business owners, you should be responsible, because when you employ people, you don't only employ John or Jane, you employ John, Jane, the family, the extended family, and everybody with that. So it's very difficult, but it's a great thing to do, but it's a big responsibility, and I think small business needs all the assistance they can to make things work. And
we need more of them, because entrepreneurship is the way to go. I mean, that is the way to go. Unemployment figures are so high. The only way to get this moving and to get the unemployment figures down, I think, is for entrepreneurship to blossom.
Well, if people have work, you give them dignity.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to beg. I'm sure you get lazy people, if I'm permitted to say that, but I think people want work. They want to go home and know they've done work and they've earned money, and even if it's a little money, they can work with that, and that's important. And we're not getting that right. I think we're talking past each other, and we're not collaborating enough. We're not talking enough. We're hung up in politics, and that's not good.
Well, hopefully we'll get it right soon. Right, we've got some SMSs coming in and a phone call. We've got Happy on the line in Cape Town. Happy, good evening.
Good evening, Karen. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you? How can we help you, Happy?
I'm great. Sorry, my call is more on a family-related matter.
That's absolutely fine.
Yes, it's basically about my mom, whom her husband passed on this year. But the challenge is that she got married on the old customary law, which is, I think, the traditional law, which according to the bank is not recognized. And she needs to access her husband's, money, which is in the bank. So I just want to understand the process of her getting through to able to access whatever her husband left behind. But we try to visit the Home Affairs, and according to the Home Affairs, the marriage that they are currently on is not recognized. And we've been, sent from pillar to post, but we don't actually get a real estate help to able to assist in this case.
I'll see if Nicolene has any advice.
Excuse me. I think, thank you for posing the question. It actually leads on to our earlier caller. And we didn't perhaps get to the customary side of the marriage, of marriage. So if you look at customary marriages, then of course there's a customary ceremony. Similarly with religious marriages, there's a ceremony, but the legal side of it needs to be dealt with through Home Affairs, or what some religions or religious marriages entail is you have to you do the ceremony and then you do a civil marriage ceremony in addition to that. So it's all about signing a piece of paper or doing two ceremonies. That's what I'm getting at in a long convoluted way. So if the second portion is missing, then unfortunately it is not a recognized marriage in terms of civil law, which means no, there's no record at Home Affairs, which means if you go to the Master of the High Court and there's an intestate situation, in other words, no will, then you as the surviving spouse are not seen as the surviving spouse in the eyes of the law, which means that the estate goes back to the parents and the siblings and the children and so forth, and you are effectively cut out. So the only way to contest this would to be to get yourself an attorney and to bring an application to court to prove the existence of the customary marriage and the relationship, and to ask the court for a declaratory order giving you the legal right as the spouse, and then you can claim.
Happy, one of the suggestions possibly I could make, because I know that they deal a lot with customary marriage issues, is the Women's Legal Centre, and they are in Cape Town. And maybe your mom should get hold of them.
What are they called?
The Women's Legal Centre. What I'm going to do, Happy, I'm going to put you back to my producer. And if you can give him an email address, I will email you the contact details for that, for the Women's Legal Centre, and they possibly will be able to assist her.
At a pro bono.
And it will be pro bono, probably. They won't charge anything.
I would really appreciate it.
Okay, Happy, so hold the line. I'm going to put you back to my producer. Give him your email address, and I will email you that information tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Happy. Have a good evening. Bye-bye now. Right, just 2 SMSs. We've got about 10 minutes left. The first one says, I applied for a loan from a curtain loan provider online. My application was declined because I didn't qualify. Later, I received emails alerting me that I now owed them about 500 Rand for using their services. Are loan providers supposed to charge people for just applying for loans?
Not if they haven't disclosed the cost. In a short answer, we often see this where you make application online or even at the institution itself. No knowledge or no information is given in regards to any costs for doing the proposal.
But it was declined even.
So usually, I mean, come on, not if you apply for a mortgage loan, then you don't pay.
So
what
does the listener do now?
Well, you can report them to the Consumer Ombudsman and to the National Credit Regulator. Presumably, if they are doing this, I think it's good to at least check if they're doing things properly, and the National Credit Regulator would be able to see that they are giving loans in accordance with the law. From a consumer perspective, if you were not advised that there would be a charge, you didn't sign anything consenting to paying the charge for just making the application, then I fail to see how they are able. Don't pay it. Don't pay it, and please report them.
Okay, the next SMS, I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to read it. It says, I have received a set-down letter on a property in an area and a court date set for it. I'm unable to attend as I've just started a new job. What do I do with this kind of problem? Who do I communicate my situation to?
I presume we are meaning a notice of set-down.
I just said a set-down letter on a property in an area and a court date.
Notice of, well, that could mean anything, but a notice of set down is basically the day on which you have to be at court for something, whether it's an eviction application or some other dispute regarding the property. I'm just saying eviction because it involves the property. Yeah. So there could be multiple reasons for it. So that would be, the best would be to actually appoint an attorney to attend on your behalf and to request a postponement.
And you can't write or phone or say something. I can't get
you'll
them.
either have to go there yourself and ask for a postponement based on the fact that you need to get yourself some legal counsel. You can even ask the court to afford you the opportunity to get pro bono legal counsel, or you need to appoint someone, pay them whatever their fee would be to go and postpone it until a day.
Because basically the listener says it can't get there because it just started a new job. So either way it can't get there at all. So it would have to be appointing somebody to go on your behalf.
Yes, please just don't
ignore it.
Show up.
What happens if you don't show up?
Well, then they can proceed without you. And I mean, we don't know what this is about really. So if it's an eviction, then you could actually be evicted if you're not there. If it's something maybe more serious like you owe money and there's a garnishee application happening, then before you know it, your new job knows that you owe someone some money and please attach a portion of your salary. So it's really important, please.
Can you appoint just anybody, or does it have to be an attorney that goes for you?
It has to be an attorney. It could either be a pro bono attorney, but if it's so soon, I doubt that you'll get someone so quickly. It could be a legal aid.
It doesn't say when the date is and how soon it is, but I would imagine.
Set down is usually a week or so.
Oh, so it's quite quick.
So I would recommend that you make haste and appoint someone.
But don't leave it.
Don't leave it. Please don't.
That's quite scary, actually, the thought. Okay, so it has to be an attorney. You can't say to your friend, "Oh, well, you go in my place." That's not going to work.
No, that's not
okay.
going to work.
So it's got to be an attorney.
In fact, that will probably aggravate the presiding officer substantially.
You don't want to do that.
No.
We've just got a few minutes left, Michael. I just want to come back to you. The whole partnership you've done now with Schoeman Law, have you done these kind of partnerships before? Is this the way? It's the first one.
First one we've done.
And I'm assuming you're going to be looking at doing some others. You like that? You smiled when you said disruptive. You quite like that.
I like that because I can see the value of software in businesses and this type of technologies in businesses, and it almost levels the playing field to a certain extent. And this is exactly what we're doing here. I think it's back to basics, and the basics are get the stuff in place you need to legally, the documents that you need to do, get that in place. Make sure you understand what goes on in your business. Invest in software. You don't need to spend a lot of money in it, but make sure it is purpose built for your business, because often you buy stuff from the shelf and they don't talk to what you do. If it's I explained to Nicolette, if it's a construction business, and anybody that doesn't know any about anything about construction, if you say cement is an important factor in the business and I don't want it to disappear, then you must make sure it doesn't disappear, and you must put things in place to make sure that you have control over those things. And so you have control over all the other aspects of your business. But slow it down, make it uncomplicated. We complicate such a lot of things. We don't need to complicate things. Make it simple.
There was a thing a while ago about legal documents having to be produced in plain English, so that the man in the street like me, like a normal person, could actually understand what it was and wasn't reading all these big words and thinking, no idea. And that's when you just give up trying to read anything. And I'm assuming with these documents that we're going to be able to download, it's going to be for like regular people like me.
Yeah.
They can read it and think, I actually know what's going on, and feel quite important and clever.
The other thing about these documents, besides the fact that, we've been part of the plain language movement, as I suspect we are being called these days,
Yes.
for many years. But what we've done here is to say, let's take some best practice and things that we've learned and things that we've seen go wrong, and we built all of these into these documents. So you can expect to be accessing something that is not of the same standard as your news agency template that you bought for 25 or 35 or 75
it's going to
rand.
be something that we would have potentially got if we'd gone to an attorney's office.
Exactly. So it's substantial. It's filled with practical things that we've seen go wrong or potentially go wrong and so on. So we've built all these things in. That's where the podcast channel that we've also recently launched on our publications page, same website. It's right at the bottom, and it streams all the podcasts. And over there, we've taken each of the agreements and we've walked through it to say, what does this mean? What does that mean? What do you need to look out for? When you're talking about this type of agreement and you're negotiating with the other party, what are the things you need to keep in the back of your mind that you need to look out for? If you're on the flip side of the coin, what do you need to look out for? So we've really done that, and we have constructed what we call our frequently asked questions. So let's say you've gone through the whole process, you know what you've had to do, you're happy with it, and now you sent the document to be signed or you've printed it out. You never checked it, you just filed it. Now something goes wrong and you bring it out and you say, oh goodness, they didn't sign on the second page. Oh, is it now invalid? So those type of questions we've also attempted to answer. And then, of course, it's the line to ask that question or to come and see us is always open in various forums, including at the office in the traditional way.
And the kinds of business that can use this, is it across the board?
Small businesses, it's aimed at small businesses and keeping things smooth and simple. And
I'm saying type of business, like Michael refers to a small construction company, but if I've got a bakery, for example, or a construction it's across the board.
It's across the board.
Okay.
And we are building it out. It will always be a general evolutionary process where we'll add more agreements, and it will be constant. So at the moment it's very generic, so that anyone can use it. And as we build onto it, we'll elaborate it. The sky's the limit at this point. So I think it's very important. It's keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate it. We can't stress that enough. Streamline things from the beginning. Don't do it the other way around, because then you end up being in a maze to sort of first cut through the clutter, and then you can get to putting the structures and the foundations and all these things in place, which costs a lot more doing it that way.
So it looks like this is the way of the future, making everything simple. We can help ourselves do things. You're just helping us to help ourselves, which is fantastic. I think it's a great collaboration, I think.
And even not only small businesses, even individuals can use it. There's a number of documents for individuals as well, so it's for the person and the business.
Well, that sounds really great. Well, my thanks once again this evening to Nicoline Skuman-Low. She's the director of Skuman Law Inc., attorneys, conveyancers and notaries public, practicing here in Cape Town, and Michael Gelderblom, a board member of the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum. And they've been my guests on tonight's edition of the Law Report program. We'll be doing another law clinic on Monday, the 13th of November. Nicoline, Michael, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.